Good day, good day, good day to everybody. And you are visiting You're So Witty. My guest today, his name is Boris Day, and we're going to bring him on now.
Thank you for inviting me to your broadcast, Mr. Shannon.
So, I brought you on today basically because we've had conversations about things you've experienced in the past, things you've dealt with. And I just thought it would be good for the broadcast if you could come on and share your story because when you told it to me, I thought it was pretty impactful. So, without further ado, you go ahead and, you know, first tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, certainly. Um, my name is Boris Day. I'm actually a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia. I have been licensed since 2016, actually. But prior to that, I had worked as a counselor and a case manager probably since 2010. So I've been pretty much working in the field of counseling for, well, now it's been over 10 years.
Right, right, right. Well, your story once we met, met through the counseling field and everything was pretty impactful, and I always remembered it. So it's befitting that I brought you on to just disclose as much as you choose.
Okay, now when I tell my story, it's almost like I seem removed from it, and I don't know if that's because of the time that's passed. Because I do remember a time in my life that I could not talk about this story. But I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, and actually I grew up in what you call a regular home. I grew up with two parents, two loving parents. I had siblings, but during this time, my siblings, I'm the youngest of four siblings, but during this time, my siblings were out of the house. They were older, they were married. It was just me, my mom, and my dad. At the time, my parents, they ran a very successful business, which was hair salons. They actually had multiple hair salons. And not only did they have hair salons, they were actually in the development of creating their own products with their own name. They had been to Chicago to develop their formula. So they were doing pretty well as two black parents not having no more than a high school education. My dad was almost like he was the proprietor and owner. He had no knowledge of the hair side, but he was more like the business side. So he was very good with finances, and my dad was very organized and very about his business. In the early 90s, in the summer, it was the summer of August the 24th, on a Thursday. I actually, for some reason, I never forget that date. One morning, I remember getting up that morning, and I remember my dad, we were all getting ready kind of at the same time. And I remember my dad in passing, asking me to do something. I think it was to mail something. He
Mhm.
wanted me to mail off. And I remember telling him, yeah, it was fine. And there's a reason why this sticks in my head too, and I'll tell you in a minute. But when I got to the shop, started working, and I guess he went to the other salon and started working. He called me, I guess around midday or so.
Mhm.
And I remember that was the last time I spoke with him because he called me just to confirm. Because remember, I told you he was such an organized person. So he kind of was doing the micromanagement thing to making sure that I did what he asked me to do. So he called and asked me, did I mail whatever it was? And I told him, yeah, it was done. And that was the very last time I had talked to my dad. But I came home that evening after work. um I don't know, I don't think it was dark out, it was like getting dark. I'm not sure what time it was, but at the time I came home with a cousin of mine, and we were in one car, me and my cousin. And I don't know, we were just going to go home and probably get ready and go out. I remember pulling up in the driveway, but I remember seeing my father's car wasn't there, but the door was open. That's what the strange thing was. The front door was open, like really just wide open. But
Mhm.
as you go up the driveway, it was up a hill, but you could see the house as soon as you get up the hill. So you could look right at the front door. The front door was open, which I thought was, it kind of struck me. It was weird because I was like, okay, my father's car is not here, and the door is open. So that was a little strange. But we did have a garage, but he didn't usually park inside the garage. So I don't know. It was strange, but I was kind of going with it. I went in the house, and as soon as I walked in the house, it was a strange feeling of some type of eeriness, but it was really, it was a heaviness, and I don't even know what it was, to be honest. But from that point, I remember walking. Something was leading me in the direction to go upstairs and go to my parents' room. My parents were at the end of the hallway on the left. My room was at the end of the opposite hallway on the right.
Mm-hmm.
I went upstairs and I went into my dad's room. And the first thing that I noticed when I walked into the bedroom was it was a bunch of dresser drawers, just things were pulled out, just like it was like somebody was looking for something, or it was some type of robbery or something. So that's the first thing I remember. And then I went around past that scene into the bathroom where I know my father had a rather large safe in his bathroom, because he had like the closets were in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So when I walked in, his body was wedged in between his toilet seat and the floor and the wall, the toilet seat and the wall. But he was on the floor, but he was and from that moment, I just went into complete shock. I think I grabbed him to try to move him, but he was a bit stiff a little. And
From that point on, after going through everything, did they find out who did this?
yes, certainly they did. They did within 24 hours, and mainly because the robbers had stolen his car. And that's why his car wasn't there when I pulled up, because the robbers had stolen his car.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, was it someone he knew, or
Well, it was actually there was a young man at the time that my father had known, but he actually tried to help. I knew the guy too, from just kind of passing, but it was somebody that my father had tried to help in the past. So this guy who had some drug issues and had a somewhat of a criminal history, he had decided to get together with two other guys,
Okay.
and they followed my father home from his place of business.
Okay. Yeah, these were
Well,
young
they
guys.
were young guys. Yeah, well, they may have been at that time. They may have been in their early 20s.
I see.
Yeah, so they were young guys, and like I said, I know for a fact one of the guys who was kind of like the leader of the pack.
Yeah.
He was the one that had initiated or came up with this plan.
Okay. Wow.
Happened, and and this story. That's just, now that I'm telling it, that was just the beginning of the story of, obviously, because it had a lifelong impact, which even it still does today. And actually, because of the story and my experiences of going to counseling, my mom and I, we attended group grief counseling.
Okay. Mhm.
After that, that's what lit the fire for me to even really drive myself towards counseling.
You mentioned the mental impact of it. How did that affect you? I mean, obviously, it's a terrible thing that happened, but how did it affect you? If you don't mind telling us, that you could see the difference in after that happened, you affecting you mentally.
I became very depressed. I became very bitter and angry,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't really focus or concentrate on anything,
Mm-hmm.
because at the time I was in school, but I couldn't finish school, and that period turned into many periods. The months turned into years,
Oh, okay.
and I could not I couldn't settle myself down enough mentally to focus, or maintain a job, or of course go to school.
Right.
I moved around a lot, because I shortly after that I left Baltimore. I moved around a lot. It was just very, very much the best way I can describe it, life was kind of like a roller coaster. Thankfully, I never got into any substances or drugs or anything like that to ease that pain. I'm thankful for that. But it was a very painful time in my life. I didn't have any peace.
What do you think? What do you think your dad would think of you as a man at this point what you become and the LPC and helping people and all that stuff. What do you think?
It's funny you asked that because just a week ago, I told my mom, I called her and I said, I told her this. I said, because my dad would be so proud of me.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure he'd
If
be
he
proud
never
of
listened
you,
to-
though. I'm sure
I
he'd be
think
proud
so.
of
Yeah,
you. Yeah,
I think so. This type of tragedy, it impacts so many people. Like it's just not.
that's right.
I talk about my family, but this is like a domino effect.
Mhm.
So I know when you hear about things that are happening today and black on black crime, it's so many people in pain. And that's what you stated when you first opened this video. But I know it's like a domino effect. So when you hear about one thing on the news, there are literally hundreds of people suffering from that one event.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because you got to think there are friends and cousins and aunts and siblings, and I mean it's just so many people that are directly affected from that one event.
I was talking to a gentleman a little bit older than myself, and he said to me, well, the biggest thing is it comes from poverty, man. That's why we black on black crime. So you can't really blame our community. It was done to us, and the black on black crime comes from poverty. And we had a long discussion on that. That was his take on it. But I've known a lot of people in poverty that didn't necessarily prey on, friends and people they didn't know in the neighborhood and stuff like that. What's your thought on that? In any of that?
I don't think it's just about poverty may play a part in decision making, but at the same time, you know, there are people who don't have a lot of means, but they have a good value system.
Right, right,
You know what I'm saying? And that's what's more important is your value system, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you are a millionaire or if you work for minimum wage. If your value system, if you don't have a good value system of just life and just respect of others, it really doesn't mean anything if you
right.
don't have a good value system in
So
place.
how do I start to see you like I would see myself? You know, if you're not already been taught that, where do we start to get people to start to view that? I guess.
Well, I know in my day-to-day counseling, now that you are asking this question, I know for a lot of young men that I do counseling with, I always like to start with their self-esteem
Yeah.
and self-worth, because that's one thing about the black community. We're talking about the black community. A lot of times it is overlooked with a black male self-esteem. It's automatic that it should be nothing wrong, that a black male don't even have self-esteem issues,
Mm-hmm.
and he shouldn't. I mean, he should be strong, he should be athletic, or whatever adjective that you put next to his name. But oftentimes that is not the truth. You know, black males can oftentimes grow up feeling less than or inadequate, or you know they could just feel like they just need to be like other be seen like others in the world, I should say.
Right.
Be seen on the same platform as others, and not looked at as thugs or hoodlums, or whatever you want to call them.
So you were saying your dad was like a leader. He helped people in the community, different things, and so that's the thing too. Having those dads in the homes, which we know in our homes, a lot of us were raised by single parent mothers. Uh,
Hmm.
how impactful is that to have that dad in the house? Like your dad was there till you was at least 20, so
Right.
he already imparted some stuff. I would hope there, and I believe he had. Uh,
Yes, he definitely has, and that's important, to having that father. And if you are not fortunate enough to even have that, just to have an uncle or a big brother or a mentor
mhm,
or somebody to kind of fill in that space.
mhm,
Because I mean, I know that, like I said, unfortunately, a lot of young men that I work with, they didn't have the opportunity to have connections with their fathers or grow up with their fathers, or in some cases they don't even know their father. Think as like yourself, you're into the same field I am, but a lot of times I just try to be there, not as a replacement, but just as an extra puzzle piece, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny you said I'm in the same field because me and you've talked on other occasions, but it wasn't until I got into the field. I know that we had single parent mothers and all that stuff, but to actually start to deal in the homes and talking with parents, I started to really see the impact of not having those dads there. How back in the day, man, you had dads down the street that would talk to you like they were your daddy.
Yeah, yeah.
You had big brothers who were brothers of the guy next to you that would still deal with you like you were his little brother.
No.
So we go to looking at what can we do in these homes. With your dad, you telling your story, I look at the man you've become, and I'm sure he'd be proud of you.
Yeah.
I just was wondering, your thought, and that's why I brought you on, your thoughts of having that parental father in the home, making sure that somebody's there to just at least impart the knowledge. You still may go out. I know guys who have talked to their sons and they still got in trouble, but for the most part, they couldn't really say that they hadn't been told. So many of these young guys just ain't been told.
Yeah, and right, they don't know, and it's like you said, it's about planting those seeds. Those seeds, and that is part of what is missing, unfortunately, the fact that oftentimes there may be no one there to plant the seeds, and they don't know, they really don't know, and that's why I'm trying to right now, and I'm saying, as a counselor, it's not so many people I can personally see, but just through my supervision and talking to other counselors, I try to say, you really got to plant good seeds.
Those things I brought you on to say, man. I'm still sorry to hear about what happened to your dad, but at the same time, I know the man that you've become, and I can appreciate it, man. And anytime I get you to tell your story somewhere, I want you to tell it, because you could have said, I give up. You said you went through a little period, but
I did.
Track.
Yeah, I had to climb back up and get and become the man that my daddy would have wanted me to be.
Well, I can tell you, I've watched you up close do the work, man, and I know you got all the tools and the skills. You've taught me a lot of stuff since I've been in the field.
Appreciate it.
But I appreciate you coming in today, man, because my thing and my mission is just to make people better, uplift people. So with that, we're going to close out, and hopefully on the next run, we will learn a little bit more about what we can do to be impactful as people and uplift the family. Thanks again. And remember, you too are so witty. Thank you very much.
Thank you.